Hi again guys, it's Claire back with video number 2. So this time, as I said, I'm making 4 cards for you. If you haven't already, head over and watch video number 1 where I show you the dies a little bit better and I make 2 cards using the champagne glass die. But this one, as I say, 4 more cards, 2 using the lollipop tree and 2 using the dove. We're going to start with the dove die. So the first card I'm going to do is actually going to be a little A6 portrait style card. So it's my basic card blank, folded and ready to go. I've cut down a square of gold, which I'm going to just stick at the top, leaving a little bit of a gap down the bottom here. But I want my border around the sides and the top to be nice and even. So I'm just going to flat stick that in position. Like so. And now I'm going to stamp my sentiment on here. Now again, as I did in video 1, I had a sticker, pre-cut sticker that I used, and I could obviously use that, but I am going to stamp on this one. The stamp that I'm using is just from a set that I've pulled from my stash, and I'm going to use this big word that says celebrate across the bottom. So I'm going to use my MISTI to do that, to make sure I get it lined up nicely. Pop my card into the bottom left corner, hold it in place with the magnets, line up my stamp where I want it, close the lid to pick up my stamp, ink it up. I'm using my VersaFine ink. My lid's actually broken on mine, but it's just a basic black Versamark ink. Close the door to stamp over. Give it a press down. Oh, it hasn't come out very well at all. I think my ink pad's drying out a little bit. But the good thing about the MISTI is obviously you can go back over with more ink without everything moving. Oh, this is very dry. And we'll do one more, I think, and we'll just about be there. There you go, we got there in the end. In fact, let me do one more just for luck. Isn't the MISTI great? You wouldn't be able to do this otherwise. There you go, perfect. So I've got my celebrate in the middle, stamped nicely. Even with a rather dry ink pad, I still managed to get that to look nice and black. Okay, the next element on my card is just another square. So again, I've used a die to do this, the Sue Wilson pierced dies, but you don't have to. You could just cut a square, any square die you've got, or just freely cut it and pop that on there. Now I am going to raise that up again, so I want foam pads on the back. Pop that into the middle. That's good. Well, I've gone ahead and pre-cut my dove die, and I've also cut out a load of the little branch or sprig that you get in there. I don't know how many of these I'm going to use yet, but I got a bit carried away. It's a really nice die, and you can't go wrong with little leaves. So yeah, I cut out a lot of those. Now I'm actually keeping this card really simple as well, so I'm just going to pop my dove into the middle of my square, and I do want him to be on a couple of foam pads. And I'm only going into the body. I'm going to actually bend up the tail and the wings a bit so that they do stick out from the card. Pop that about there. And then I'm just going to stick these little sprigs as if he's sitting on them. So I'm going to use a tiny bit of glue on each one, just to stick them down there and make a little bit of a cluster of, or a little branch for him to be sitting on. It'll look a little bit messy as you do this, but the more you start to build up, the better it will look. And don't put too much glue on each one. Try and keep it not too glued down. You want these bits to be able to move up, so you get a little bit of dimension there. I think just to finish it off, I'm going to snip one down. I'll just use those last 3 little leaves just to cover up that middle section, like so. And that looks really nice. And that's it, I'm calling that card done. So again, a really, really simple one. Let the dies do the talking. You know, you don't need to overwork these cards. Less is more sometimes. Really nice card. Now my next one is actually even more simple. I'm going to keep this with no sentiment on it this time. So I've got a smaller square card blank. This is about, I think it's about 11 centimetres square. I've cut down a piece of gold card to go on the front of there, and I've actually rounded off the corners of this one. Flat stick. That down. Then I've cut a circle again, so this is a stitch circle, but you could use any circle die that you've got. And I'm going to flat stick that down. Okay, stick that down, and then really simple with the dove in the middle. Again, folding up the tail and the wings a little bit and popping that on. And then that is it, I'm calling that done. So it just complements this one nicely. They're so beautiful. No sentiment on there, so obviously you could write whatever you want inside and use it as a sympathy card or a wedding card or anything. It's just a really simple little card, but really pretty with that dove on there. Okay, now we're going to move on to the final die that I'm going to be working with, which is the Lollipop Tree die. So this is this one here, which cuts out beautifully. I run this through once, it cut out straight away, and for such an intricate die, that was nice to do. I know sometimes we have to struggle with them, but this just went straight through the machine and cut out my little tree. Okay, so card number, what are we on? Number 5 now. Card number 5 is going to be a little A6 portrait card again. So simple card. I've cut a piece of gold to fit on there nicely. So just normal gold cardstock cut down to fit in with a little 2mm gap all the way around the edge. I'm just going to stick that in position. Then I've die cut a little rectangle. Again, I've got the Sue Wilson pierced rectangles as well as the squares, and this just worked really well on here. You don't have to have the die, you could obviously just cut a rectangle to fit in there. So I'm just going to stick that right in the middle. Like so. And then I've gone ahead and die cut my tree in gold. It looks absolutely beautiful, doesn't it? Doesn't that look gorgeous? Those little tiny birds and the little birdhouse. I really like this die. Lovely. Okay, now to stick this on, I'm going to use tiny little dots of glue. I don't want to overdo it with the glue because I know I'll end up getting in a sticky mess. So little tiny dots on the leaves and the back of the flowers. And just pop that straight down. So obviously just flat stuck straight down into the middle of the card. It's absolutely beautiful. In real life, this is so pretty. Let a little press down, let that glue dry. Now for my sentiment on this one, I've actually cut a little banner strip. Now I've got a die that does this for me, so I just cut out using my die, but of course you could just cut out a strip and make those little ribbon ends on your own. And I'm going to stick it right across the middle here. First of all, obviously I want to stamp a sentiment on there. Let's see if we can get this done without it seeming too dry this time. Oh, it's still not coming out the best, but as I said before, that's the good thing about the MISTI, is you can go over it until you're happy with the coverage that you've got. There you go, done. That's lovely, I really like that. You could use obviously any sentiment. This die could be used for anything really. And I'm just going to pop that sentiment right across the middle. I do want that to be on foam pads. Simply stick that across the front of the card. Puff up the edges of those bits a little bit. And that's it, I'm calling that one done. Again, super simple, but really, really pretty. I know I've said it a couple of times already, but the die, with these dies, let them do the talking. You don't have to overwork them. They're really, really nice. Moving on to card number 6. This time, we're going back to a square card again. So I've got this all ready to go for me. I've cut down a piece of gold that just fits in there with about a sort of 3mm border on each side. Flat stick that down. And I've got my next layer, which is a square. Again, this is a die cut square, so it gives me that pierced edge, but it doesn't have to be. If you haven't got the dies, you can just cut a square to go on there. So I have die cut my tree, the lollipop tree, but this time I've done it in white. So it looked lovely in the gold, but I also really like the white on white look. So I'm showing you how that works. So I'm going to stick that down just on here. And then we're going to do a little extra just to make these flowers pop out. So I'll show you that in just a second. Let's get it stuck down again using tiny little dots of glue. And then pop that down onto our card. Now this time for my sentiment, I'm going to stamp straight onto the card base. So again, we need the MISTI. And I'm going to use just the same sentiment set again. Okay, now we can go ahead and stick this down onto our card. Okay, now to make this one a tiny bit different, I've actually gone ahead and die cut the tree again. I'm going to snip off the little flowers from here, and I'll neaten them up a little bit as I've got them all off. But I think what I'm going to do is work one by one so that I don't lose the position that I'm in. So neaten them off as I go, and then sticking them on using a little tiny circle foam pad. Now I realise these have got a hole in the middle, so obviously you're going to see that foam pad from the front of the card, but we'll get around that in just a sec. I'm going to stick that on top. I'm going to offset it slightly because it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. And on to the next flower, just snip that out. Pop a little foam pad on the back. And then stick that one on top again, slightly offset. Finished sticking on all my little flowers. Now, as I said, there's a hole in the middle, so obviously you see that foam pad behind. But to cover that up and also make the flowers pop a little bit more on this card, I'm going to put a gem in the centre of each of the flowers. And that's it, then I'm calling this card done. But yeah, completely different take on that die, really brings it to life a bit more. If you don't like it just kept more simple and subtle, you can make it pop. You could even obviously cut the birds out, the little house as well if you wanted to. But that's it, so those are my 4 cards for this video. And as I say, if you haven't already, head over and watch video number 1 where I've made another 2 cards. Hope you've enjoyed seeing me play along with these dies. Thanks for watching and I shall see you very soon. Bye bye.